Smith Show starts right now.
What's going on, everybody? Monday, the 5th day of August, 2019. Dan Grassa sitting in for Stephen A. on the Stephen A. Smith Show, which is being brought to you by mycomputercareer.edu. Training for a better life. We are live on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. 888-SAY-ESPN if you want to be part of the program. 888-729-3776 is the telephone number. We'll be joined a little bit later on in our program by ESPN NFL analyst Ryan Clark as we go around the National Football League. We already have one preseason game under our belts, and everybody else will pick this thing up in just a few days as teams get back out on the field coming up on Thursday with a bunch of games, and then on into the next couple of days. So football's in the air, football is here, and it couldn't be a better time. We'll get into all the baseball situation a little bit later on, as well as you got some teams making their move here, like the New York Mets, who have caught fire, winning 9 out of their last 10, and believe it or not, are knocking on the door of one of these wild card spots just a few games out. And the Yankees just finished up sweeping away the Boston Red Sox in the Bronx here, punctuated by the Sunday night victory last night. And boy, the defending World Series champions, you don't want to go too crazy with the Sox yet, okay? Because after all, they just won a World Series last year. This is almost supposed to be one of those like free seasons. But when you look at the Boston Red Sox right now, they are in legitimate danger of not even getting into the playoffs in 2019. They are in a world of trouble right now. So some things we'll get to a little bit later on. But it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. And we got the news yesterday that Tom Brady and the New England Patriots come to terms on a new contract extension. And when you look at it on the surface, you know, they say that it's a multi-year deal, but when you strip away everything else, it's really a year-to-year contract. And with Brady, he essentially gets himself a raise for the upcoming season. He's going to make $23 million this year, $8 million more than what he was slated to make. And that still only makes him the 6th highest paid quarterback in the National Football League. But money has never really been about the main thing for Tom Brady, at least in terms of his playing check. Okay, I know the guy makes a lot of money with endorsements. He's married to a supermodel who out-earns him. So money is not something that is necessarily a problem in the Brady household. We know that. And he has always taken a little bit less. So the team could go out there and sign other good players and to be able to surround him with quality talent. And that's one of the reasons why the New England Patriots have been as successful as they've been under Brady and Belichick. And that's why they won their 6th Super Bowl championship last year. We know that. And by making this move, it actually creates about $5.5 million of extra cap space for the Patriots here for 2019. But it remains to be seen, and I know that this almost sounds like blasphemy to some, but he is 42 years of age. And you wonder just how much longer he'll be able to play at a high level. I mean, we saw instances last year to maybe where he took a step back or two, and maybe he wasn't playing at the same level, but it was still good enough to make the plays when necessary and to help the Patriots win themselves another Super Bowl championship, as we all know. But now you strip away a guy like a Rob Gronkowski, who for so often of his time with New England was really that security blanket for Brady. And I know the Patriots did win a Super Bowl while Gronk was not out on the field. I understand that. So they've proven that they can do it without him. But it certainly would make the quarterback's job, who is now 42 years old, be a heck of a lot easier if you have a guy like Gronk in tow. And I know that there's this talk about Gronk maybe coming back in one day and maybe he's not fully retired and we haven't seen the last of him in the NFL. If that's the case, fine. But right now you have to operate. We're going to operate. The Patriots are moving forward as if Gronk isn't going to be there. So what does that mean for the quarterback? You know that they're pretty solid up front on the line. Okay, they're extremely well coached on the offensive line. They have been for years. You know that they have a capable run game, and I would expect to lean on those guys tremendously if you're the New England Patriots. That is a quarterback's best friend. You get the run game going, opens up play action. We know how successful Brady and company have been at that for years and years and years because they've just been picking on the entire National Football League. Okay, that has been the key right there. And as long as you have this guy, you have a chance. Because in this 2-decade run of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, we have seen players come and go. Good players come and go. Hall of Fame players whose services were no longer needed with the New England Patriots. You know, we saw one of those guys go into the Hall of Fame on Saturday night in Ty Law. There eventually came a point where Bill Belichick said, you know what, I don't think Ty Law is worth what he wants to get paid. Thanks for the memories. We'll see on down the road in the Ring of Honor. There have been a lot of those guys, Richard Seymour's of the world, and they move on. But the one guy who's pretty much been indispensable has been Tom Brady. Now, he's been a good team guy. As we said, he's taken less money. But also Bill Belichick understood and identified that is the guy, that is the one position where you cannot ill afford to have an inferior player. Okay, they had Jimmy Garoppolo that they drafted, and he came out there and played a little bit when Brady had his 4-game suspension until he got hurt. But Tom Brady has been the engine that has made that team go. And there's been a lot of, who's more instrumental to the Patriots' success? Is it Tom Brady? Is it Bill Belichick? And you know what? To me, the answer is both of them. The answer is both. Because I don't think one is successful without the other. Bill Belichick, great football mind, great coach. When he was the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, he wasn't winning Super Bowls. All right? When Tom Brady was injured in 2008 and missed the whole season, they had a pretty decent year with Matt Castle as the quarterback, but they didn't win a Super Bowl, didn't even make the playoffs, if you remember. They help each other out. They're good for each other, and I think that they both acknowledge that. But the funny thing about it is, remember just a couple of years ago, we had that big piece written up on ESPN about, Brady, Belichick, Kraft, they're growing tired of each other. Eventually, this is all going to come apart. This could be the last time we see these guys working as a trio, as a group, as the New England Patriots, as we know them. They're still alive. They're still kicking. They're still going at it. And would it shock anybody if this team is back in the Super Bowl again in 2019? Not me. I've learned my lesson about counting this team out. Famously, the Kansas City Monday night game all those years back, which then spawned the on to Cincinnati, and then the team never looked back. And that's all this team does. They keep winning and winning and winning with this next man up philosophy. But it is remarkable. And, all my years of watching football and growing up, you never thought in a million years that you would ever see a quarterback, or in this case, what we have now in the NFL, quarterbacks, playing at a high level still at the age of 40. Remember, because by then you're supposed to be done. You're supposed to have lost a step or two. The arm isn't supposed to throw those fastballs like you did early on in your career. And maybe just from a personal standpoint, maybe you just don't want to play anymore. Maybe you lose that will, that desire. But you see what a Drew Brees is doing? You see what a Tom Brady continues to do? And right there, I just listed 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. Rank them and order them however which way you want. And I think that also is partly responsible because of where we are right now and how the game is being played. Quarterbacks are allowed to go out there and almost have a sense of security in the pocket. They don't have to fear for their life when they drop back to pass because the rules are designed to protect quarterbacks, and none more so than Tom Brady. I mean, you breathe on Tom Brady. You get a flag thrown on you for 15 yards and an unsportsmanlike conduct of roughing the passer or whatever you do. You sneeze on Tom Brady, it's 15 yards. The refs do a great job of protecting him. Now, the quarterback also does a good job of protecting himself, but I was thinking about this yesterday. When we got the news about the Brady contract extension, I was thinking, and marveling at 42 years of age what this guy continues to do. I'm not 42, but I feel like garbage when I wake up in the morning. This guy goes out there and wins Super Bowls still and plays at an extremely high level. Breaking news, I don't know if I could do that at that age. I don't know if I would be able to feel that good at 42. I don't feel that good now. But you think back to some of the greats that have played this game. And Tom Brady has been compared with Joe Montana, of course. Who's the best quarterback of all time? Who's the GOAT? Who's this? Who's that? And I remember Montana's career. I saw all of Joe Montana's career with the Niners and the Kansas City Chiefs. And I thought back to the 2 hits that Joe Montana took in the playoffs in his career. The 2 most fierce hits that he absorbed. One in 86 against the Giants and Jim Burt in that game at the old Giants Stadium, which knocked him out cold in a game that the Giants destroyed the 49ers. And then in the championship game in 1990, when Leonard Marshall came from behind and completely just fell on top of Montana, I think broke one of his ribs, as a matter of fact, knocked him out cold. Just those two hits right there. Tom Brady ever taken a hit as bad as one of those in his entire football career? And I'm not talking about the play where he ripped up his knee back in 2008 on opening day. I'm just talking about ferocious hits like that. And the answer is no, because the rules don't allow that anymore. They just don't. And that's why I talk about the quarterbacks having a sense of security that in the past they didn't have. It's similar to wide receivers nowadays. Back in the day, if you were a wide receiver and you decided to run over the middle, you were taking your life in your hands. Because you knew that if I went over the middle, if I catch that football, or if there is a football that is thrown in my direction, there is a better than good chance that my head might be detached by the Ronnie Lotts of the world coming over the middle. Okay, but they don't have to worry about that anymore. Because safety is of the utmost concern and of the utmost importance right now in the NFL. It's a different world that we play in. It is a different game that these guys play. And I'm not sitting here trying to rain on their parade and tell you that Brady's not good, or that Drew Brees isn't good, or that these guys aren't Hall of Famers and some of the best to ever do it. But you got to acknowledge, times are different. You know, the Joe Montanas of the world, the John Elways of the world, the Dan Marinos. I'm talking about guys that just played 30 years ago. I'm not talking about, the 50s and 60s and way back when, John Unitas. All right, even those guys. The game was different when they played. It was not designed to allow quarterbacks to play at 42 years of age on a very, very high level still like this. And eventually that's going to stop. And eventually you're not going to be able to do it anymore. But if you're the New England Patriots and if you're Tom Brady, you ride it out as long as you can. The closest thing we probably have to it is probably Favre. Favre played till he was 40 years old and still played at a fairly high level at a time when the game was still a little bit more physical than it is right now. Favre's last year was 2010. If you remember that championship game with the Vikings in 2009 in New Orleans, Favre took an absolute beating that day. I still say that was probably one of the three worst quarterback beatings that I've ever seen as in my lifetime as a fan of the National Football League. Is what happened to Favre in that championship game in the Superdome against the New Orleans Saints and that defense. That doesn't happen nowadays. That doesn't happen anymore. So if it's working for you, if you've perfected the system, why not ride it out as long as you can? And the same thing with Brees in New Orleans. I mean, he plays indoors for crying out loud, too. It's like going into a country club and slinging that ball around. It's like arena football. Not an arena football guy. Hate indoor football. Hate it. All games should be outdoors. But those are the breaks. So while those guys continue to succeed and those guys continue to get it done almost at a freakish level, some other guys are still waiting to get back out on the field, namely Ezekiel Elliott and the Dallas Cowboys. And yes, unfortunately, we keep having to talk about this. You look at Zeke and his importance to this Dallas Cowboys team, and we know how important it is. Guy's been the rushing champion in the National Football League 2 out of the last 3 years. Okay, he is the engine that makes that offense go. And this is a team that has to take care of Dak Prescott with a new contract. You have to take care of Amari Cooper, who you paid a hefty sum to be able to get him onto your team from the Oakland Raiders last year. And Jerry Jones over the weekend says that he's pretty confident that they're going to be able to make this thing work and get all three of these guys names on a new contract. And you might as well. And this is something we'll get into a little bit later on when we have Ryan Clark on the show. But when you look at the Dallas Cowboys right now, specifically with Dak Prescott, remember, he's still playing on his rookie contract as a mid-round draft choice in the NFL. Those guys do not break the bank. Dak Prescott, who's only slated to make $2 million this year. I know, I say only $2 million. But that's all he's slated to make. Do you realize he is going to be the 78th highest paid quarterback in the National Football League this year? And no, you don't have to do a double take and look it up. There's only 32 teams. So think about that for a second. You have to go almost 2-3 deep on some of these depth charts. And you'll find guys that are going to make more money than Dak Prescott as things currently stand right now. The guy's only made about $1.6 million so far in his career. When I tell you that Chad Henne Drew Stanton, those guys are slated to make more money than Dak Prescott. It's got to make you cringe. But if you're the Cowboys, hey, it's your advantage. And this really isn't all that different than what's going on or what went on with the Seattle Seahawks not too long ago. When Russell Wilson was not a first-round draft choice, was a guy that they rolled the dice on in the middle rounds, and they found him, and they won with him, and they developed him, and it was good for the organization. But remember, what the Seattle Seahawks were able to do with Russell Wilson as the quarterback was surround him with an extremely formidable football team, especially on the defensive side. And you had the Legion of Boom, and you had guys that you were able to pay big money to be able to get them on your squad because your quarterback was making no money whatsoever, at least in the grand scheme of things. And they were able to parlay that into 2 trips to the Super Bowl, winning one of them. Probably should have won both of them, as we know. But they got to the Super Bowl twice. Dallas Cowboys, what have you had to show for it with Dak Prescott playing at such a meager salary? You won a division championship a couple of times? Okay. How far did you get in the playoffs? So, in a way, when you look at the Cowboys, the clock is ticking on them for at least this season and maybe not much longer after that. Because there's going to come a point where Dak is going to hit the jackpot and you're going to have to make some tough decisions with guys on your football team that maybe you can't afford anymore. Maybe you have to make some sacrifices at areas that you can ill afford to do that to, but you're going to have to satisfy the most important position on the team, and that's the quarterback. And that's the dilemma here when you look at the Cowboys. You know, it's fascinating because I'm a big believer in take care of the quarterback. It's a quarterback world. It's a quarterback society that we live in. There's no secret there. But when you look at this Cowboy team and you see how important Zeke Elliott is and what he means to that offense, he is the offense. He is the offense. I know that Amari Cooper has helped them, and he certainly was big for Dak Prescott last year when he came aboard. But are you convinced right now, legitimately convinced, that Dak Prescott is an elite quarterback in the National Football League? Is he a top 5, top 10 quarterback? I know that he's won a lot. All right, I know the wins and losses record is certainly something you could be proud of. Shoot, he's won more than Carson Wentz has won. He's been more durable than Carson Wentz the last few years. And Carson Wentz is cashing what kind of checks after he got his new contract extension? A lot more than Dak. But I just can't get past the fact that if you look at the Cowboys and you look at the way they are lined up on offense right now, that I don't know Dak Prescott could be a game-changing, put the team on my shoulders quarterback without the capable running game. I'm not convinced. And oh, by the way, the offensive line's pretty good too. It's pretty good. Good line, dynamic rushing attack, capable target at wide receiver. Those are all the quarterback's best friend. But if you're not strong in the trenches up front and he can't move the football on the ground, that just means more and more that the QB is asked to do. And in this case, I don't know if we have seen enough of that from Dak Prescott. And I'm sure that those are conversations that Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones and everybody in the front office of the Dallas Cowboys are probably having to themselves as well. You know we got to take care of him. We've already said publicly that we're going to do that. But do we really know how good this guy is? That's a tough question to ask because I don't know if the Cowboys want to even entertain that scenario. And this is even with the shelf life of a running back being what it is, which is not as long as a quarterback. As we just talked about here with Tom Brady and Drew Brees, you can play till you're 40 if things break right for you, and you can stay in one piece. Running back, not the case, especially with how many times the Dallas Cowboys feed Zeke Elliott the football. And they're probably going to do exactly the same thing. And why shouldn't they? If you have a young stud running back on your football team, in so many ways, you might as well run him into the ground. And then if there comes a time when you feel that he's slowing down and you feel that he's got a lot of mileage on the car, then you say thanks for the memories and you move on. Right? The Cowboys played this game already before with DeMarco Murray. And remember you thought that the sky was falling? And how did the Cowboys get rid of DeMarco? The guy was a dynamic player, one of the keys to the offense. And then what happened? Not long after, they found Zeke Elliott. And at the time, there was a lot of people scratching their heads. Why would you take a running back that high in the draft? This isn't a running backs league, right? You had Jalen Ramsey sitting there on the draft. Cowboys needed help on defense, and yet they decided to turn in the card with Zeke Elliott's name on it. So while it's a quarterback world, and I know that Zeke Elliott still has some money on his deal, and he'd still be getting paid, I almost want to take care of him first. Because right now, you want to maximize what he has left in terms of being a top flight running back. And then you take care of your quarterback. Dak knows he's going to get paid. Dak knows they're going to take care of him. And as long as he doesn't get hurt and nothing goes wrong, I think there's enough money there to satisfy all parties with the Cowboys. Salary cap the way it is, they're going to have some money coming off the books. I think that in a perfect world, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you can make it all work. 888-SAY-ESPN is our telephone number, 888-729-3776. And that was Straight Talk Wireless, everything for less, only at Walmart. As I said, we got ourselves a busy show here. Ryan Clark, our ESPN NFL analyst, is going to join us coming up next hour to go around the National Football League to weigh in on not just what we talked about here at the get-go, but you also have some other stories here that are percolating, which we'll hit on, like the Andrew Luck situation with the Indianapolis Colts. In an offseason where everything was supposed to be okay for Luck for the first time in what seems like forever, now he's dealing with a lingering calf issue, something that's been bothering him since April, and it still hasn't resolved itself. And you take Andrew Luck away from the Indianapolis Colts, you might as well just take the whole team away because they're not going to be successful. That's certainly something that bears watching. I don't know if you have the stomach for it, and I'm giving you the warning now. But if you haven't seen the picture that Antonio Brown posted over the weekend of the shape of his feet and how they look and appear right now, if you have a weak stomach, it's not for you. I'm giving you the warning. But it's something that's preventing him from getting out on that practice field with the Oakland Raiders, who we know have a lot of attention on them this season. Want to hear from you as well at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Now, when you're hiring, you don't want to waste time sorting through dozens of irrelevant resumes. You want an efficient way to get to a short list of qualified candidates. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions based on your job requirements, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. Discover why 3 million businesses use Indeed for hiring. Post a job today at Indeed.com/hire. Search for greatness. Search Indeed. Dan Grassa in for Stephen A. It's a Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio and ESPN News.
Nature Valley Sweet and Salty